one thing you need to know about the taxis here, there's loads of them. You will not have a problem getting a taxi. There must be a taxi for every person in Rio. One thing I can say about the taxi drivers here, very few of them speak English. So you need to know where you're going. Preferably write it down so that you can give it to the taxi driver. The other thing is that the taxi drivers don't like it when you give them large notes. Anything above 100 Rio notes and they won't give you change. So keep a lot of change on you. The other thing is that the taxi drivers won't give you small change. So don't be offended when you give them a note and you don't get your small change back. When you do get into a taxi, expect a white knuckle ride because these guys drive like crazy. Safety is the last concern on their mind. These guys will watch TV, play on their mobile phones and maneuver the traffic, and you won't know what's hit you. Typically a fare will cost you anything between 10 and 25 Rios. It's very cheap. The only thing that you have to keep in mind, many of the roads in Rio are one-way systems. So if you catch the taxi in the wrong street, you could end up going many blocks around the corner, and that can cost you a lot of time and a lot of money because the traffic is extremely hectic here. So the best thing is to know where you're going and then perhaps walk a block or two until you get in the right direction that the taxi needs to go. The other thing you need to watch out for here is when you're hailing down a taxi, it's not the cars you've got to worry about, it's the motorbikes, the bicycles. They'll come flying down the streets, and some of them will even come up on the pavements. So be really careful when you step out into the street here. The other thing you've got to watch for when you step into a taxi here, make sure he switches on the fare on the front, because otherwise he's just going to make up a price when you get to your destination. Now you'll know the system that all taxis use worldwide. It's just a little screen with how much the fare is. But a lot of the taxi drivers don't even bother to switch it on. So before you pull off, make sure he switches that thing on. Otherwise you're going to end up paying a lot of money. Another thing when you catch a taxi here is make sure that it's one of the official yellow taxis. It's got a blue stripe along the sides and it says taxi on top. Do not get into an unlicensed taxi. Just to note that the taxi drivers here, very few of them speak English. So unless you're knowing exactly where you're going, you're going to have a problem. I found this issue in the shops as well. Very few people speak English here. Some of the younger shop assistants, they do speak English. But in general, you're going to have a hard time communicating. When you're visiting all these tourist attractions, just remember, if you're in Rio, there are thousands of pickpockets here. Now, the police have a very strong presence here, and you're never far away from one of the normal police or militarized police. But pickpockets here are opportunists. You've got a camera in your pocket, wallet in the pocket, that will be gone in seconds, you won't even know it. I've already had a family member had a necklace snapped off from their neck. You won't even see it coming, so be very aware. Do not wear any jewelry when you're walking out, especially at night. Do not flash your camera around, especially do not flash your money around, because you will become a target. Now, the crime rate is as high in Rio as it is in anywhere in the world. But in Rio specific, there's a lot of petty crime. And as a tourist, you will get targeted. So always be mindful. You see a lot of the street kids, they'll be on their bicycles, on their motorbikes, running around. And the police have a hard time keeping an eye on them. And if you want to have a trouble-free holiday, I suggest carry only as much money as you need in your wallet and be very careful with your credit cards. And a big camera here, I wouldn't suggest it. Well, right now I'm standing on the world famous Copacabana Beach. At first glance it looks amazing, beautiful white sand, hot weather. The reality is, unfortunately, that while you can come and lie down here and sunbathe, that swimming on this beach can be particularly dangerous. There's a shore break on this beach. It can be quite difficult to negotiate when you get out of the water and into the water. So the result is that not many people actually swim on this beach. Quite often as well, the gangs will target these beaches. They'll come running along here, maybe 10-15 of them in a group, and they'll just snatch everything they can on the beach. We've also found that this beach is particularly polluted. The water's full of plastic, and we have found glass on the sand itself. Now the reason why there's a shore break on this beach is that many years ago there was a big storm here, and it took away most of the sand, and they've actually had to rebuild the sand here, and the consequence is that there's a shelf now. So the surrounding beach is actually much higher than the water level. So it creates this trough, and it makes it quite difficult to swim. If you really want a good swim, then I suggest you go further along to Fort Copacabana, which is maybe a mile along the beach. Other beaches that you can try is Ipanema. And once again, the waves dependent on the wind, and if you can't swim there, there's always Leblon. If you must come to Rio for holiday, I strongly suggest you book into one of the hotels on the actual beachfront. I found that the further away you get from the beachfront, the more the standards start dropping. Now, this might be an unfair criticism because we're actually staying in a hostel. Now, I knew we were going to have to slum it when in the hostel, but I didn't actually realize how much. Almost been electrocuted twice in the shower. The cleanliness is horrendous. But then for £16 a night, I suppose you can't complain. And the hotels on the beachfront will cost you an absolute bomb. Personally, I don't think Rio is ready for the Olympics and the tourists that are going to come here. Very few of the taxi drivers, the shop assistants, the hoteliers can actually speak English. So you're trying to communicate something to them and you're just going to fail miserably. So I advise that if you go anywhere, take somebody Portuguese speaking with you. A typical example is we've been eating in some pretty expensive hotels, and you order a duck, you're going to get lamb. And when you say that that's not what you ordered, they'll try and convince you that's exactly duck that you're getting. And there you are. Now when you come here, you might get a culture shock as well. Some of the customs are completely different. One of the funniest ones that have cropped up is the toilets. You cannot flush toilet paper down the toilet here. You actually have to take your toilet paper and stick it into the bucket next to you, because the pipeworks weren't designed to handle the toilet paper. So all I can say is good luck with that one. You've been warned. One more thing, I don't exactly know where the stadium is compared to the city center, but taxi drivers have told me that it's quite a distance out from the city. Now, we have ventured out the city, and trust me, it takes an hour, 2.5 hours just to get out. And I've seen them working on the tube station here that's supposedly going to be ready for the Olympics, but nobody in Rio is actually convinced that anything is going to be ready. So leave yourself plenty of time. And once again, take lots of water with you. You're going to get really hot here.